The glow of the pink moon has passed, but the atmosphere still holds its imprint. You may not see the brilliance in the sky anymore, but you can feel it in your body, in the silence, in the pauses, in the way everything suddenly feels a little more spacious, a little more raw. This isn't just the end of a lunar peak. It's the beginning of something far more subtle, the descent inward. The light no longer shines to reveal, it fades so that what was revealed can begin to take root. It's in this shift from external glow to internal glow that transformation quietly begins. You might feel more tired, less talkative, more drawn to solitude. That's not disconnection, it's realignment. What the moon showed you is now moving through your nervous system, your emotions, your spirit. Not as fireworks. As frequency. This is not a time for rushing ahead. It's a time for letting things land. Let what you've seen start to shape how you breathe, how you move, how you choose. If you're already feeling this slow shift settling in, this quiet, unspoken turning point, drop a word or phrase in the comments. Not to be loud. Just to say, I'm here. I feel it too. And if you want to walk through these energetic thresholds with more clarity and presence, subscribe. These aren't just moon cycles, they're soul alignments. And you were never meant to walk them asleep. The moon is still bright in the sky, but if you look closely, you'll notice it's no longer growing. The peak has passed. The light, once rising with full intensity, is now beginning its quiet retreat. This is the waning gibbous phase, a stage often overlooked, yet incredibly rich for those walking the path of soul alignment. Unlike the dramatic crescendo of the full moon, this part of the lunar cycle doesn't shout. It whispers. The insights have already been revealed. The emotional waters have already been stirred. Now, the only question is, what will you do with what you've seen? This is no longer the time to seek clarity. It's the time to hold it. To let it move from your mind into your body. From outer awareness into inner anchoring. From something you know, to something you live. The energy now isn't asking for more action. It's asking for absorption. And that's not as easy as it sounds. We've been conditioned to keep chasing the next high, the next answer, the next sign. But true spiritual growth doesn't work like that. After light comes depth. After revelation comes retention. This is the moment where transformation either roots, or fades. You may feel this shift in ways that are subtle but undeniable. A slowing down. A pull inward. A soft resistance to noise or busyness. Not because you're tired, but because your system knows it's time to integrate. That the truth revealed under the full moon wasn't just for reflection, it was for embodiment. In ancient astrology, the waning gibbous phase is known as a time of processing. The peak has passed, but the energy still carries momentum, only now, it turns inward. It begins to refine what was released. To sort through the emotional debris. To settle what was stirred. If you've been feeling more sensitive, more selective, more attuned to subtle cues, you're not imagining it. You're aligning with the moon's descent. And this descent is sacred. It's the lunar counterpart to the moment after deep prayer, when you rise from your knees and carry what was spoken into the rest of your day. You're not being asked to explain the truth you found. You're being asked to become it. The book of Ecclesiastes says, there is a time to speak, and a time to keep silence. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 7. This is the time for silence. Not the absence of voice, but the presence of listening. The kind of silence that honors the echo of God's whisper in your soul. The kind of stillness that says, I don't need to perform what I've seen. I just need to hold it until it becomes who I am. And maybe, that's what you're feeling right now. That things are moving, but not outwardly. That a shift is taking place, not in your circumstances, but in your posture. In your values. In the way your breath changes when you stop trying to control everything and simply let the new rhythm carry you. The waning moon is not about more. It's about enough. It's about recognizing that the light already gave you what you needed, and now, your task is to trust it. To let it seep into the unspoken parts of your life. To let the soul hold what the mind cannot. This is not a time to launch. It's a time to listen. To walk slower. To protect your quiet moments. To notice what's shifting beneath the surface. Because what's happening now is not dramatic, but it is essential. You are being prepared for embodiment, not just awareness. So don't be surprised if you're drawn to stillness today. Or if conversations feel heavier, because you now hear the subtext. Or if solitude suddenly feels less like isolation and more like restoration. That's the moon working within you. That's your spirit adjusting to the weight of truth. You're not falling behind. You're falling deeper. Into wisdom. Into resonance. Into rhythm. Let it happen without resistance. Let it move through you like light filtered through branches, soft, quiet, but utterly transforming. And if the world doesn't understand this version of you, this pace you've chosen, this calm you now carry, it's okay. They weren't meant to see it. They weren't there when the moon whispered. But you were. And that's enough. Not all transformation arrives in thunder. Sometimes, it follows in silence, subtle, unspoken, and easy to misread. After the light of the full moon has pulled everything to the surface, a different kind of energy begins to settle. Not rising. Not falling. Just hovering in the space where the soul is still catching up. You may not feel moved to act today. Not because you're stuck, but because something inside you is slowly integrating. That inner stillness, that strange pause in momentum, is not a sign of confusion, it's a symptom of spiritual alignment working its way through the nervous system. What your soul saw under the full moon was real. But now your body, your emotions, your energy field, they need time to understand how to hold it. This is the emotional residue. The afterglow of deep seeing. The invisible work of carrying truth not in the head, but in the bones. And that process can make you feel blank. Not empty. Just inwardly quiet, suspended in a space that doesn't demand performance, but presence. It's the in-between where old energies have been released, but the new ones haven't fully arrived. A kind of energetic exhale, where nothing is asked of you except stillness. You might find yourself more porous than usual, emotionally sensitive, easily moved by words, tones, even silence. You may notice you're less interested in noise or movement. The things that usually engage your mind feel far away. It's as if your outer world continues on autopilot, but your inner world is paused, watching, sensing, adjusting. This isn't dissociation. It's spiritual refinement. There's a quote in Luke's Gospel that lingers through times like this: "No one pours new wine into old wineskins." The new energy you're meant to carry can't be held by your old structures, your old habits of reaction, your old beliefs about what's safe, even your old rhythms of thought. So before the new begins, the soul, quietly, without permission, begins to dissolve what can no longer hold the weight of your becoming. That's why this time can feel raw. Even fragile. You're no longer who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. You've seen too much to go back, but don't yet have the instructions to move forward. The spiritual map you were using no longer works, but the new one hasn't been handed over. And so you stand, soul half awake, body halfway through rewiring, energy field half emptied and half filling again. This isn't dysfunction. It's sacred transition. Astrologically, this waning gibbous phase is not made for decision-making. It's made for digestion. This is the time to feel what you saw. To trace the emotional texture of what was revealed. The insights were given in moonlight, but now they begin to seep into shadow, where your deeper self lives. This isn't about clarity anymore, it's about coherence. Does what you learned live well inside your breath? Has it softened your posture? Shifted your attention? Or are you still trying to think your way into embodiment? You don't have to have answers right now. You don't even have to name what's changing. You only have to notice what feels quieter. What no longer fits. What no longer calls your name. And maybe, just maybe, that's the work the soul is doing, not showing you what's next, but gently removing the noise that used to distract you from hearing what's always been inside. And in that softness, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing clarity and start trusting resonance. You stop looking for signs and begin honoring sensations. The pressure to perform fades, and in its place arrives a deeper kind of knowing, the kind that doesn't need words. This isn't the end of transformation. It's just a quieter part of it. And if today feels still, surreal, or emotionally vague, let it. If you don't feel like explaining, don't. If your emotions come in fragments, honor each one. Don't try to understand your becoming while it's unfolding. You're not meant to label it. You're meant to live it. Because sometimes, the soul doesn't speak through lightning, it speaks through fog. And if that's where you are right now, it's not because you're lost. It's because you're walking slowly enough to let the truth settle where it's meant to stay. It happens quietly. Almost without warning. One moment, you're keeping up with the usual rhythms of your day, conversations, tasks, messages, movement. And then something shifts. Suddenly, the world feels loud. Not just noisy, but too noisy. Too sharp, too fast, too much. Things that once felt normal now seem jarring, out of place, even unnecessary. You begin to realize, it's not the world that changed. You did. What you're experiencing is not detachment. It's refinement. A subtle, sacred disconnection, not from life, but from the version of life that no longer fits the frequency you're stepping into. After the energetic intensity of the full moon, after the truths it unearthed, your system starts moving differently. You're no longer matching the speed of those around you. You're sinking to something quieter, more internal, more aligned. This doesn't mean you've become withdrawn or cold. In fact, quite the opposite. Your sensitivity has heightened. You're more aware of what's happening beneath words. You notice the tension behind someone's smile, the disconnect in a room full of people, the subtle drain that comes from engaging in things that used to excite you. It's as if your entire energetic field has shifted one octave higher, and now you can feel the distortion in anything that no longer resonates. You might find that everyday routines feel off. That certain conversations leave you feeling empty. That crowds, noise, or even multitasking suddenly feel impossible to bear. This is not weakness. It's energetic clarity. Your body is telling you what your soul already knows. Alignment isn't just about what you say yes to, it's also about what you can no longer tolerate. There's a line from mystic Thomas Merton that whispers through these moments. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, is to succumb to the violence of our times. And maybe that's exactly what your soul is rejecting now, the unspoken violence of noise, speed, and disconnection disguised as productivity. What you're feeling is not an escape from the world, it's an emergence into your own rhythm. You are beginning to walk through life at the pace of presence, not pressure. At the frequency of truth, not approval. The external world may not understand it. It may try to pull you back into its urgency. But your body no longer responds the way it used to. You're not out of sync. You're finally in sync with yourself. And that can feel lonely at first. Misunderstood. Even disorienting. But that's only because the world has trained you to match its chaos for so long. Now that you're moving differently, it might seem like you're falling behind. You're not. You're finally walking in tune with your own truth. You're not rejecting the world, you're realigning how you relate to it. You're not isolating, you're becoming more intentional. Every part of you is learning to feel the difference between noise and resonance, between obligation and soul compass. So if today feels strange, if your schedule no longer makes sense, if silence feels more nourishing than sound, if you find yourself stepping back from conversations without guilt, that's alignment. That's refinement. That's healing showing up not as dramatic change, but as the subtle refusal to keep pretending you're okay with what no longer fits. Let yourself move at your new pace. Let the world race on. You're not missing anything. You're meeting everything that actually matters, within. There comes a point in every cycle where the loudness fades and life becomes whisper soft. Not because nothing is happening, but because what's happening can no longer be measured in motion. It's in this exact moment that stillness stops being optional and becomes sacred. Today is not asking you to act. It's asking you to be. Not to figure anything out. Not to chase clarity. But simply to hold space, for yourself, for what's shifting, and for what's yet to come. This is the sacred pause. After the intensity of emotional movement, after the subtle rewiring of your energy field, the only next step is no step at all. What your spirit needs now isn't progress. It's space. Space for your nervous system to settle. Space for your truth to breathe without being pushed into a plan. Space for your becoming to take shape slowly, beneath the surface. The mind may resist this kind of pause. It may urge you to make sense of what you've been feeling. To outline, define, label, understand. But stillness doesn't work like that. It's not linear. It doesn't come with answers. It comes with atmosphere. Sensation. Presence. And it invites you to meet yourself not through thought, but through breath, body, and rhythm. This is a perfect day to step outside, not to go anywhere, but to witness. Take a walk with no destination. Let nature do the talking. The sky doesn't explain itself, yet it speaks. The trees don't chase answers, yet they grow. There's a frequency in the stillness of the earth that matches something ancient inside you. When you slow down enough to listen, the outside world becomes a mirror for what your inner world is quietly processing. If you feel called to journal, don't try to structure it. Let your words be fragments. Phrases. Colors. Sensations. Let them spill without correction. This isn't the time to articulate. It's the time to release. Sometimes, the most profound integration happens not through clarity, but through the honest mess of what remains unsaid. And if nothing wants to come out at all, if your body simply wants rest, or your spirit asks for silence, listen. Let the quiet speak for you. Let the emptiness be its own prayer. The seed does not sprout in the light. It takes root in the dark. Mystic proverb. You are that seed right now. Not idle, but hidden. Not stuck, but steeping. Your transformation isn't frozen, it's underground, growing toward a shape you haven't yet seen. And the only thing it asks of you is to not rush the soil open. Don't force the bloom. Don't force yourself to feel better, to be productive, to move on. That pressure belongs to a world out of tune with sacred rhythm. You're learning a different way now. This pause isn't wasting time. It's preparing you. Making room. Holding space for the real shift to settle, not just in your energy, but in your instincts, in your breath, in the way your feet touch the ground. Every great turning begins with stillness. Every sacred becoming begins with surrender. So if your only action today is to not act, let that be enough. If all you do is feel your own pulse, notice your own slowness, and breathe into the silence you usually avoid, that's more than enough. There is no checklist for this kind of day. Only presence. Only trust. Only the willingness to let what's hidden take shape in its own time. There are moments on the spiritual path that don't feel like forward movement. They feel like floating. Like waiting at the edge of something invisible. You're no longer in the place you came from, but not yet rooted in where you're going. This is the liminal zone, the sacred space between insight and embodiment. The hallway between revelations. April 15th lives squarely in that space. You've already received the clarity. Whether it came through a dream, a conversation, a flash of intuition, or simply a deep inner knowing, something was revealed. But that revelation isn't finished just because you saw it. It still has to become you. And that process doesn't happen in an instant. It happens slowly, silently, in the space where you stop trying to force meaning and begin allowing transformation to take its natural course. This is not a time for rushing. In fact, trying to move too quickly now would only pull you out of alignment. You're walking through a spiritual threshold. And thresholds are not meant to be sprinted across, they are meant to be honored. Something old has been stripped away. Something new is preparing to emerge. But right now, you are in the middle, where everything feels unfamiliar, unformed, and uncertain. That feeling of not knowing who you are anymore. That's part of it. The disorientation. The quiet undoing of who you were before the light touched you. This is not regression. This is redefinition. You're between identities, between assignments, between frequencies. It may feel like the ground beneath you is shifting, and it is. But only because a new foundation is forming beneath the version of you that is still arriving. You don't need to explain this to anyone. You don't even need to explain it to yourself. You just need to stay present. To remain in this in-between without trying to label it. It takes spiritual maturity to become comfortable with the unknown. To resist the urge to tie everything up with language. The mind wants answers. The soul wants expansion. And expansion often begins with silence. There is wisdom in this suspended space. Wisdom that doesn't come through study, but through stillness. This is where the inner world rearranges itself in preparation for new expression. You're not supposed to act yet. You're supposed to listen. Not to the noise outside, but to the whisper inside. Transformation is not always loud. Often, it whispers. And you can only hear that whisper when you're willing to be still long enough to notice it. You won't hear it in the rush to figure things out. You won't catch it in your attempt to map the next 10 steps. You'll find it when you finally allow yourself to stop gripping, stop calculating, stop pretending you know. The liminal zone has no timeline. It honors no checklist. It doesn't care about your calendar or your desire for clarity. What it offers instead is sacred disorientation, not to punish you, but to soften you. To stretch your spiritual skin just enough that it can hold what's coming next. You are in the threshold not because you're lost, but because your inner world is aligning with what's true. So if you feel undefined today, if your words come slower and your thoughts feel scattered, if your sense of identity feels more like a question than a statement, welcome. You are exactly where you need to be. Between versions. Between stories. Between the breath that lets go and the one that begins again. Don't rush to cross over. This middle ground is just as holy as the destination. Let the unknown reshape you. Let the quiet fill in the gaps. Let this moment stretch as long as it needs to. Because when you finally step forward again, you won't just be walking into something new. The moon didn't leave. It simply stopped reflecting. What once cast its glow so clearly across the sky has now turned inward, no longer asking to be seen, but asking to be carried. This moment, though subtle, is not empty. It's where something sacred begins to take root, not in what you do, but in how you hold what you've received. This is not a disappearance. It's a descent. A deepening. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are in integration. And integration does not look like inspiration. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's the part of transformation that few talk about because it doesn't sparkle, it settles. It moves into the nervous system, into the subconscious, into the way you breathe and respond and choose. This is the part where truth moves from the surface of your awareness to the center of your being. It's where spiritual maturity begins, not in knowing more, but in embodying what you already know. You may feel slower now. You may feel uncertain. That's not regression, it's resonance shifting. You're not supposed to know what comes next. You're supposed to let what already arrived shape your next step from within. And that kind of unfolding takes stillness. It takes faith in the silence. That is why you are being asked not to act, but to hold. Not to fix, but to feel. Not to plan, but to pause. There's a reason Scripture doesn't command you to understand, or to strive, or even to search. It simply says, "Be still, and know that I am God." Psalm 46 verse 10. Stillness is not passivity, it's permission. It's where the sacred gets louder because you finally turn down everything else. This isn't a void. It's where new resonance is being written into your field. Your spirit already heard the message under the light. Now your body is learning how to live it. The moon's silence now is not abandonment. It's trust. Trusting you to carry the wisdom it revealed without needing to be shown again. Trusting that what has awakened in you will not be lost just because the sky has dimmed. And if you feel strange in this space, if you feel soft, or tired, or wordless, it's because you're no longer operating from your old pattern. You're learning to move from a quieter, more attuned place. The kind of knowing that doesn't ask for validation. The kind of alignment that doesn't rush for results. This is where your path becomes real. Not when you're shining, but when you're still. When you stay with yourself even when no one else sees it. When you hold space for what's unfolding, without trying to make it more comfortable. When you begin to realize that the pause itself is sacred, not a lack of movement, but a different kind of motion. Inward. Rooted. Timeless. So if this season feels quiet, if your emotions feel slower than your thoughts, if your clarity hasn't yet turned into language, that's okay. Let it stay unspoken for a while. Let it breathe. Let it move through your field at the pace it needs. Don't rush to make meaning of it. Just be here, in this silent unveiling, where the real work is happening beyond what the world can see. And if something in this space has stirred something in you, a shift too deep for words, a knowing without explanation, take a moment to mark it. Not with a full story, not with perfect language. Just a word. A phrase. A trace. Leave it in the comments, not to be seen, but to say, "I feel it too." And if these kinds of soul cycles speak more to your spirit than to your logic, if you're learning to walk in rhythm with something quieter, something older, something unexplainably divine, subscribe. Not just to stay informed, but to stay aligned. This isn't just moon energy. It's soul alignment. And you were never meant to walk it asleep.